What's up, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, man, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod, on YouTube at March 4th Pod, on TikTok at March 4th Podcast. The links to all my stuff are in the podcast description for this episode. So if you made it here, that means you found us somehow. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you checking out another edition of the March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. I hope everybody's doing well, man. It's been a great start to the year for me personally, and I'm really looking forward to turning 36. Actually, it's kind of crazy. Some people, I don't know, they get older and they start to be conscious of their mortality, which is natural, I guess. But for me, I'm pretty happy, dude. You know, I'm in decent shape mentally, physically, spiritually. I like to imbibe every now and again, but I'm taking good care of myself, and the show's going well. And more than any of the stuff that I do, man, as far as this podcast or whatever, having the family and the friends that I do, having the inner circle that I have, being able to make the kind of friendships and connections that I've made doing this show, those are the things that are the most important to me. So I'm grateful for my genetics that I still have a full head of hair at nearly 36 years old. I'm not trying to rub that into anybody out there who may have lost theirs. R.I.P. Um, but yeah, man, like I'm grateful that I don't look my age, I think. But more than anything, man, I'm just happy to be alive. I'm happy to be here to tell my story, to share other people's stories. The older that I get, the more I really realize that every day really is a gift, man. We don't know when our next day is going to be our last. So making the most of your time while you're here and doing your best to just be the best version of yourself every single day is truly the most important thing. And how you treat people. It's not about caring what people think of you as far as, do they like me? Do they not like me? Does he like me or she like me? But in terms of leaving a legacy behind where it's like, yeah, I know Mike, he's a good dude. That's what's important to me. You know what I'm saying? Those two things are different. Doing things because you want people's approval versus just carrying yourself in a manner that, is kind and accountable and and brave, and that's one thing that I've struggled with is just bravery, pushing through fear, pushing through anxiety, going after the things that I love. But I'd like to think over these past few years, especially the challenges that have arisen in my life, that by the grace of God and that support system that I mentioned, as strong as I've ever been, truly. So as I approach my 36th birthday, man, I'm a little reflective, but I'm excited to be here, man, and I'm excited again for all of you who tuned into the show, and once again, I thank you all for being here, man. I want to give a shout out to my buds in Tropic Bombs, not only to Ryan, who is expecting his first baby with his wife Mandy. Congrats, you guys! But they also hit their Kickstarter goal for their upcoming record and board game with gatefold packaging and like so many cool things, man. I was happy to support it and be a part of it. I can't wait till it comes out. So shout out to those guys and shout out to them having their first baby and growing their family. That music that you hear in terms of in between the interview and the intro music to the show, that's all Tropic Bombs. And Ryan is he's salt of the earth, truly, man. He's one of my favorite people, and I'm blessed to call him a friend, and I'm so happy for him and his wife Mandy expecting their first kid, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that they got married almost 9 years ago. I remember going to that wedding like it was yesterday, and it's just time is a trip, man. But yeah, I'm really grateful. And again, to everybody who's listening, and maybe this week's guest brought you here, and this is the first time you've listened to the show, but anytime anybody takes the time to listen to the show, if you engage with my content on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, if you take the time to like and subscribe, all those things go a really long way in helping the pod get out to more people, man. So if you do like what you hear, please take the time to tell a friend and do those things. because as much as I hate begging for them, they do help the show grow, and it's been cool to see it grow and to see where it's going. And speaking of seeing where things are going, man, this dude is a really, really kind, down to earth cat. We were fortunate enough to come into contact with each other well, I should say actually I think it was mid 2023. Shout out to Johnny Zirkle over at High Road Publicity, man. He's been a big supporter of the show, and he got me in touch with this dude. And as I dove more and more into his work, I discovered more things about him, and it just speaks to his humility, and you guys will hear that in this conversation. He is none other than Maks Gabriel. Maks is a producer and songwriter based in Nashville, Tennessee, where I am, and he spent a lot of time growing up playing the piano. In fact, from 1991 to '02, he studied classical piano at the McGill Conservatory of Music of McGill University in Montreal, and literally learned from one of the modern greats as far as piano is concerned. And then, as you guys will hear in this conversation, man, he got to a point in his life where he had kind of the 9 to 5 thing going and had a steady job, a steady paycheck, and then decided, man, like, I love music so much that if I don't take this opportunity and I don't take this chance, you know, I don't know when it's ever going to happen. And he came down to Nashville not knowing really anybody. I think he didn't know anybody. And it was back in, if my memory serves me from a conversation, it was over a decade ago now. I think it was around 2011, 2012. He came to Nashville and has really made a name for himself, man. And again, Maks is a humble cat, so I'm gonna talk his ish for him. But in terms of credits, like I said, he studied music, in particular classical piano, growing up throughout the '90s and into the early 2000s. Um, he also worked closely with Ryan Kowarsky of the group RyanDan, and they wrote and produced hit songs for numerous Canadian artists, including Belly, Massari, Mia Martina. They received a Juno nomination for Dance Recording of the Year for the work on Mia Martina's album Devotion. And then Maks loves songwriting. That, like I said, he eventually decided to take that leap of faith, make the move to Nashville. And since he's been here, man, he's done so much, dude. But among those credits are working with artists like members from Three Doors Down, Megan Maroney, Radney Foster. The list goes on. There have also been placements from work that he's done because of his love of film and wanting to write for TV and film. He's had songs that have been placed in shows like Yellowstone, which I'm sure you've heard of, CMT's Nashville, Roswell, New Mexico, Legacies, True Blood, The Mindy Project. Uh, Got It From My Mama from Danny Rose, which at the time I think was Honey County, had 1 billion views on TikTok and counting. I mean, so this dude has a lot of credits under his belt. And I think, again, I've said it a couple times already, and you'll hear it in this conversation. One of the coolest things about him is that you wouldn't know that. Maks is as talented as they come, but he's also one of the most humble and gracious and down to earth guys that I've ever met, with all the projects that he's working on. And I know recently there's been a lot that he shared on his Instagram from, like, the aforementioned Danny Rose, Courtney Red. Um, Danny just did a cover of Burden in My Hand from Soundgarden that they even shared. Such a sick cover. I digress. But he's somebody who doesn't speak about all this stuff. He doesn't show off. And I think that's what's really cool about him. And I just feel really fortunate that our paths crossed and that he took the time, you know, in the midst of his wife coming home and raising his kids and everything, and his busy schedule, producing all the hits and all the awesome placements that I just mentioned to speak on this podcast to me and share with me and you all a little bit about his journey and his story. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Maks Gabriel. Here it is. Yeah, man, the creepy robot lady. Well, Max, I really appreciate the time, man. Even shooting the breeze with you before we officially hit record. You're good people, and I'm not just saying that because you're kind enough to come on March 4th with me, but just having our paths cross, man. Like, I feel like not from a musical ability perspective, because I can barely play four chords, but just for a shared love of the art of music. It's been cool getting ready for this, even digging more into kind of your background and stuff, man. But where I kind of wanted to start with you in the time we have, dude, is I know you started playing piano at a really young age. Was that something that you were drawn to? Like, or like what was your first your earliest musical memory? That's usually where I kind of like to ask people, especially somebody that's kind of touched as many genres and has done as much work as you have. Like, do you remember the first time it really grabbed you?
It's a really good question because that's really what funny enough, that's what started it all for me was piano. And it's probably my earliest memories of music. Uh, my my mom hired a piano teacher to come and not to teach us piano, and say us because I have one of three, well, four boys. I have three brothers, and we all had piano lessons and we all played piano at one point. Um, but when I believe I was 6 or 7 years old, um, I started. Um, she hired a teacher. He would come to the house, and we were not at the stage where we were able to sit down and concentrate to play or to actually sit and focus to learn any technique. So what she had him do was just play his repertoire, and he would play, Chopin, Beethoven, and all these beautiful pieces. And he would allow us to sit next to him and just bang on the piano while he played all these incredible compositions and pieces. And we it I think that was part of the joy, was that it wasn't a forced a discipline type of thing, where it was like this beautiful moment to enjoy music, but to actually see it being played and performed without the pressure and uh, everything that came with that, to try to learn it or learn the basics right away. It was more just music appreciation in a sense. And apparently I have vague memories of that, but apparently we did that for an entire year before we even had a formal life. And I say we again, I'm talking about me and my brothers, because we all started kind of around the same time. Um, and Shortly after that, I got a teacher at McGill Conservatory of Music in Montreal, which is where I grew up. And that conservatory is a pretty renowned one in Canada. It's beautiful. It's got a lot of history. McGill University is a very well known and respected university in Canada. Um, and their music school and their conservatory is attached to it, and it's also pretty prestigious. And we were just lucky that we lived in that city that had that. So I started taking lessons there, and that was the start of it all. Like, just classical piano, learning scales, all that stuff. But yeah, my earliest memory is banging on the piano, my my mom played a lot too. She's a great player. She still plays. She's still alive, and um, she would she wanted us to have a piano. She wanted us to play piano, and that's where it all started.
So it was an intro of her love for it, but it wasn't like the pressure of like, oh, you're gonna be the next whoever. It was just like, hey, I want to expose you guys to this because I think this is awesome. And then you ended up taking to it.
Yeah, it was low pressure to no pressure at the beginning. However, as soon as my mom discovered that I had some sort of ability or natural, uh, it was coming naturally to myself and my brothers. She, the attitude changed a little bit, and it became more. there was more pressure added on. She wanted us to have one of the best teachers that she could find, and there was a pretty strict practice regimen. Um, we had to. I think she wanted us to practice at least an hour a night, and it was usually before or after homework. But it was tough because I have three brothers. We were all playing at the same time, and everybody needed their practice time. And there was one piano, so
Yeah.
it was kind of difficult to figure that out. But yeah, we just that's where the regular practicing came in, and a lot of questions over the years came up after that, like why are we spending so much time on piano when there's so many other extracurricular activities we could be doing, with sports, you name it, whatever it may be. And yeah, it became a little bit more stressful, I think, and I didn't enjoy that side of it. Recitals also, I hated recitals. I think I didn't like it because there was a very close proximity that everybody sat at the recitals where they could watch you really close, and any error you'd make was pretty obvious and pretty noticeable. And I think I think I've always maybe been a perfectionist, but at the time too, like I wanted to execute every piece I played, um, you know, uh, without error, and they have this pressure sometimes, in my family. Like, I was always trying to make my dad proud, or make my mom feel proud and happy with my work and whatever it was. And piano was something that, and music was something my mom loved so dearly. So I think it was a more there was more pressure added on because of that. So all that compiled was, made it a little bit more stressful, made it less enjoyable. However, it didn't diminish um, my love for the instrument or music in general. It just it changed the my perspective a little bit, maybe.
And how was it working with I don't want to butcher her last name. I feel like I'm Dees with pronunciations, but Marina.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Marina's correct. It's a Russian name. So that was actually what changed. That changed everything for me. Um, because she was a world class pianist. Competition winner. You know, was under. She was judged by some contemporary uh, composers that are regarded today as legends, and up there with the Beethovens and all that. So having somebody like that as your mentor is pretty intimidating, but it was very eye-opening. And to give you the biggest contrast, so I had done maybe from the age of maybe 8 till I want to say 13, 14. I was taking lessons at the conservatory, and at high level, and I thought that I was on par. I thought that I was kind of progressing at the right rate. You think I'm playing my scales properly, and I am understanding how to read properly. All the things that come with playing the piano, and the technical part and the theory part. And the first lesson I had with her, I first of all had to audition to have her as a teacher. So she wasn't the type of teacher where you could just hire her. You had to present yourself, play something for her, and she basically would decide if you're worth teaching. So if you butchered whatever you played, or you played with no feeling or no emotion, or she felt like it was a waste of time for you to pursue music, she would not teach you. She would just say, no, I'm not interested in teaching this person. There's no point. So
Yeah.
it was very stressful. I was pretty stressed because I did want to continue piano. At that point, all my siblings dropped out because they just didn't care enough. At that point, they didn't want the pressure. They didn't want the extra work. But I really loved piano. Still at that point, I wanted to keep pursuing it. But I was worried because I was wanting to impress this person and still have a great teacher and learn more. So I played for her, and she was pretty brutally honest. She was like, yeah, she's like, you've got something, but she didn't like make me feel like I deserved it. She kind of was like, yeah, I'm doing you a favor by I'll be your teacher, but it's like more of a favor to you. So I was appreciative, but at the same time I was nervous and I was kind of worried about it. I was like, man, I hope this works out. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a long-term thing. Um, and in the first couple lessons, she basically told me that everything I had learned in the last 5, 6 years, or however many years I've been playing since I started, was all wrong and backwards. Even though I was being taught by one of her peers, the same conservatory, and I was taught by a PhD in piano. So, but she was at a different level. She had a different, she was just very, very disciplined, very intense, very hard, like the hardcore version, like of of a piano teacher, the most hardcore version you could think of. And she made me feel like I had wasted the last 5, 6 years of playing, and I knew nothing. She was like, play a scale for me. I played. She's like, no, you're doing that wrong. You're doing that. She's like, play an arpeggio. Okay, no, you're not doing that right. She's like, okay, play this. And so all my technique had to be relearned her way, which was, oddly enough, it ended up being the best outcome, because everything she taught me took me way ahead where I was, even just a few days before, early, like previously. And I didn't see it at the time. I see it now looking back, but at the time I was just like, she's too hardcore. She's just too intense, and I thought she was exaggerating. But now looking back, without her doing that, and without me actually realizing that how far behind I was, I would not be the player I am today. And it's not that I'm like a classical pianist today or like touring the world doing that, but a lot of the technique I use in my playing and my understanding comes from her correcting a lot of those things that I wasn't doing correctly. So yeah, it was a huge it was a huge learning experience, and it was a big wake up call for me musically, and it changed everything from that point on. Uh, the way, just my overall understanding of the instrument, and music in general.
What would you say, Max, was the most valuable lesson you learned from her that you still apply to this day? Whether it's like discipline, um, finding your own voice on the instrument. Like I think it was when I was checking out your piano tracks, um, because I knew you more from your guitar and your producing, and then it was lost. I was like, dude, he's really singing on this one. But what was the most valuable lesson that you learned from her that like you still use today in your production?
Um, that's a really good question as well. I would say, I think it's the discipline side of it. Uh, being disciplined, not being satisfied. It's not being a perfectionist per se, but it's just not being satisfied with an average take or an average performance of, even if it's 2 bars of something, a short little passage. It just has to be well done. It has to be executed correctly. And um, I think it's also the other thing probably that goes along with that is just the way you apply the technique, because there's so many ways you can do one thing in music, and if you pick if you pick the correct one, or if you pick the one that I've kind of gotten accustomed to, you get to the destination quicker, like to where you're happy with how it sounds, you're happy the way it feels when you play it. Just moving your it's as simple as just moving your hand in a certain way, or using a different fingering, or just a position of your wrist. It's like a golf swing. If one thing is off right in a golf swing, you don't hit the ball right. So I think the same thing applies with lots of instruments, including piano. If your positioning is not right, if your the angle isn't right, it just comes across in a different way. You can still play it, you can still hit the ball, but it won't necessarily go where you need it to go.
Yeah,
Analogy.
that's yeah, man. No, it's cool. It's just like I've heard people talk about. I can't remember what guitarist said it, because especially now too, I feel like with all the technology that's out there, people have different DAWs and stuff that they use, but you can program all like your own unique sound. And I can't remember who said it, but just on that point you made, he's like, man, so much gets made of the equipment and the kind of guitar and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, but ultimately at the end of the day, he's like, it's all in the fingers of that player. It's like you could have the best guitar or this pedal or that pedal, but at the end of the day, it's like about that feel,
It's
right? Like,
fingers, it's feel. Yeah, the feeling is what matters, but it's also the taste. Taste is everything. Choice of notes, voicings, all that stuff. You know, how many there's so many different ways to play one chord. You know, what voicing are you going to pick? Are you going to add, a note here, a note there? You have so many choices, but you have that moment in that performance to choose the one that works best in that composition. And I think that's what differentiates players and musicians. It's like what their instincts, it's that instinct. And I think you can train your instinct and retrain it. Like moving to Nashville totally changed the way I played, even piano. You
really?
Yeah. It's funny because you can grow, you grow up and you learn theory, and you're kind of almost told that the more theory you know and the more technique you have, the further you are. So you feel a need to show off, or to just put that on display as much as you can, to be like, I need validation that I'm great, I need to show you I can do this. So it's like, you know I, an example is like guitar solos, right? Like you have guitar solos that just shred the entire time, and then you have beautifully kind of crafted ones that sound like they're almost their own melodies, their own songs, because they sing. They don't just they're not just scales and arpeggios. They're they're their own passages, musical passages, but it's in a solo. So I think Nashville, I don't know, moving here, working with session players, I think is what taught me that, is because session players have to be very tasteful. Um, Even though they can destroy anybody, technically, they can rip any solo, play any technique, better than most people can. They don't do that. Like Derek Wells, great example, incredible virtuoso guitar. His dad, Kent Wells, who's Dolly Parton's producer, um, they're both guitar wizards. They can play anything. Van Halen, yeah, I'll figure out the Van Halen solo. Like, how many people can do that? Not a lot of people. And then he's playing, and then they go chicken picking on something. Like it very, very, very talented guys. But Derek is a great example. Like, he played on some of my songs, some demos of mine, and some tracks, some productions early in his earlier days when he was trying to prove himself. Now, as you know, he plays like all the Morgan Wallen and Hardy stuff. Like, that's all him. He's even co-producing a lot of that stuff. But back in the day, he was cutting his teeth, and he was playing, just trying to. Oh, I'll try to play some guitar, lead guitar, or rhythm guitar on your demo. He was doing that, and even a guy like him, like, so tasteful. I was almost trying to. I remember in a session he played on one of my songs, and he played the solo, and it was a really beautiful sounding solo, but I knew he could rip, and I was like, dude, like, can you just like go a little crazier? And he wanted, like, he gave me a couple passes and he recorded them, like a few different passes of him like going a little bit more to town and like doing some more complex sounding stuff. But at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily right for the tune. So he was, the guys who are good, they're tasteful. And I think that just goes a long way in music, and it helped me harness almost everything. It's like, take it back a little bit. Don't get too flowery, don't get too complicated. Like, save it for when you need it, because some songs need it a little bit here and there. You're gonna be a little bit showy, but um, it's especially in commercial music, it's not. It's all about taste, and you've got to like kind of pace yourself and make sure that you're not overplaying and taking the spotlight away from what matters in that song. So yeah, Nashville taught me that. Um, and I think it was like one of the most important lessons especially as a player, as a pianist and a guitar player. Um, that was like one of the best lessons for sure.
That's awesome, dude. Well, and I want to be respectful of your time, Max. I'm so happy you took the time to speak with me. By the way, we talked about it at the beginning, but happy belated 40th, by the way. Um,
Fuck.
but
Sorry.
and I know you're I know
I don't know if you have to bleed. Do you like? Are you allowed to swear on here? Do you have like
you can. Time flies, man. I'm gonna be 36 in like a month and a half. It's wild, but
Oh, it's almost over for you, man. It's almost
it
done.
is, dude. It's halfway out.
Halfway.
Um, but I know you're a humble cat, and there's a ton of which I'll probably do that in the intro of the show. People listening have probably already heard it already, and they can. There's a breadth of credentials, and really what I want to focus on in the time we have left, more than name dropping and stuff and that
Sure.
kind of thing. Although I will shout out Danny Rose, because I know as of recording this, her cover of "Bird in My Hand" from Soundgarden, it's freaking awesome. Chris Cornell is like one of my favorites. I never got a chance to see him live, unfortunately, the late great Chris Cornell, but I know that I think his wife and his estate still like run their stuff or like his stuff, and they even shared her cover, which is pretty dope. And you worked on that with her, so kudos to y'all, man. That's really sick.
Thank you.
Um, but what I kind of wanted to focus on, man, is a guy who has had people that you've worked with that have been in everything from like Forbes to Rolling Stone, the aforementioned Danny Rose. I know got it from my mom. I had like billion views on TikTok, which is insane when you think about a billion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've also had stuff that's been placed in TV shows like Yellowstone and gotten to do that, which like you're somebody that's been able to take, that childhood kid who was banging on the piano
Mhm.
and turn it into a career. What advice would you have somebody out there, maybe not necessarily looking to do that exact same thing, but just what has been essential to you, you know, pursuing what you love and having the courage to do it? Because I know that's something that like I struggle with a little bit, is like self-doubt, anxiety, obsessive compulsive tendencies, believing in myself, believing in doing this podcast. As somebody who's been able to come to Nashville,
Yeah.
make a name for yourself in the friggin' music city of all places.
Mhm.
And obviously you had your work in Canada that you did before that, but like what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe just trying to get out of their own way? Have you ever struggled with those things, like regarding anxiety, self-doubt, like to get where you are? Were you always confident as a player, or being able to do what you're doing for a living as a producer? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but the real question in my rant there is just like, I think just getting out of your own way and having the courage to do what you love. Because I think so many people have been sold a version of what the American dream is, or what success means, or a 9 to 5, a big house, all this stuff. And as you mentioned earlier, before we even hit record, about how precious time is, you're somebody that has made the most of it from where I'm sitting with your time, man.
Well, I think everybody. It's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that. It strikes a lot of emotions. It's almost impossible to answer it 100% honestly, because there's so many answers that could be useful to people. Um, in my experience, however, which is the only one I can really shed light on, I I think just really get ready to suffer. Accept accept that suffering is part of the journey. Comfort, whatever your comfort zone is, I think you just have to sacrifice a lot of it. Not all of it, because that's asking a lot of people, and even of myself, it's really hard. But I had to sacrifice a lot. I had to just I had to just risk it. I think that a lot of people are afraid of just taking that risk because of the doubt or fears that they have. And I don't think that I don't think that I never had fear or doubt. I never concentrated or focused on it, however. I think I always had it in the back of my head, like, okay, yeah, I could fail, or I could not be good enough. But I never dwelled on it or focused on it. I kind of said, okay, that's a possibility, but what should I focus on? I need to focus on what do I need to do to get to where I need to be? And if my 9 to 5 job is in the way, I needed to quit that 9 to 5 job. And I did. I had actually just gotten a promotion to a $60,000-$70,000 a year job in Canada while I was living there. And I just had enough. And I said to myself, I'm starting to make waves I'm starting to progress in music. But if I keep working this, in this job, and if I'm going to get more and more comfortable, I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to get further and further away from my dream. So instead of doing what most people would have done, which is take the promotion, make the money, and have a comfortable and stable life, I quit. I gave my 2 weeks. I said I don't want the promotion. I don't want the money. Taking that risk, I did that. I didn't take that job. I gave my 2 weeks, and they were like, "Are you crazy? Like, what's wrong with you? We invested all this money in you." And there's so many repercussions to making those decisions. And I know most people are like, "Well, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't upset people, and my parents, and this, and like there may be so many layers to it." And I just ignored all the layers, and I was just like, "Fuck it, I screw it. I don't care. I need to focus on myself, because if I don't do this for myself, nobody's going to do it for me." And I think that that's the time in life where you need to really concentrate on you and make those really tough decisions. And I think that was the game changer for me. As soon as I quit my job and moved to Nashville with no connections, nothing, no assets, no money, I sold everything I had, but I didn't have anything. I had barely had anything too. So I was risking even more. It's not like I had a nest egg. I'm like, yeah, I'll go, and I have all this money saved up. I'm going to go to Nashville and make a career. A lot of people are able to do that. I work with a lot of people that save up a ton of money and then come and try to live their dream. I didn't have that luxury even. I couldn't do that. I came here, I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a laptop or a computer. I didn't have a guitar. I had to sell my guitars. I sold my guitars. I sold my equipment. I had no musical equipment when I moved to Nashville about 12 years ago.
Wow.
You know, uh, now I can't even tell you how many guitars I have and all that. But I, everybody's journey is different. Mine was like that, where I had to just risk it all. And I did it multiple times. That was the first time I did it. And I had to do it again, because when I moved here and sacrificed everything, I had my back up against the wall, and I needed to get a job. I needed a part-time job at least. And I was like, okay, well, if I work a little bit, I can still do music part-time, and I'll work part-time so I can supplement and get some income. And I started doing that. And then because of I'm so determined in my work, I kept getting promoted to where I was doing so well in my part-time work that was becoming full-time. And then that was becoming a promotion to where I was going to make a lot of money, and I had to throw that away again. So I did that twice. When I moved to Nashville, I also got a job like part-time a little bit and to supplement the music. And I also rejected promotions, and I quit that job as soon as I felt like, you know what, that's going to interfere with me doing my music thing full time, and I need to really focus on it. So sometimes people need to do it multiple times. I don't think it's a one-time thing that can happen. But for me, it was maybe 2 times where I had to basically sacrifice and risk it, throw away the comfort for the dream. So that's my advice to anybody who's trying to do what I'm doing, or following their dreams. Is just you have to risk take risks, and you have to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is the best thing you can do. I think it brings out the truth. It brings out the true person. Uh, uh, the warrior in you. Like if you're strong, if you can really persevere, that's where that piece of you comes out, and that's where it shines. It's in those situations. It's not when you're comfortable and happy and making money and sitting in your day job. It's when your back's up against the wall and you have no choice. Are you going to survive? Are you going to persevere? And um I think you just have to take the chance. You either have the guts to risk it all, or you're too comfortable. I think comfortable, like I've said, comfortable a lot. I think that's the best word for it. It's just get out of your comfort zone, take risks. It's like what every freaking Joe Schmo, these life coaching people tell you. It's like, take a risk, do it, no, all that. Like, but it's true. I mean, that's my story. I risked it all, and I have a lot to show for it, and I'm happy with that decision. I would never have done it differently. If I did, yeah, I would be working for a company and making money, but happiness is personal. That's not happiness for me. So if somebody's happiness is money equals happiness for some people, then that's what they do. They pursue the money, they follow the money path. For me, it's different. It's more fulfilling this need to be creative and express myself that way. And I need to do it on a daily basis to feel healthy, to feel good. Otherwise I get into a dark place. And that's another totally other side of the conversation. But um we all have different reasons why we do things. So that's another part of it.
Well, Max, I really appreciate the time, man. And you're a husband, you're a father, and you're a gentleman and a scholar, quite literally and figuratively. So we'll have to get you back on for part two. But I really appreciate the time, man. And again, apart from all of the accolades and stuff that I wrote down here in my notes, man. I'm grateful that our paths have crossed because you were very kind the first time we spoke. I enjoy heavy music, and we didn't get into that on this one, but I know
Oh,
you're
that's a
you're well
secret
versed in.
recipe.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're well versed in that as well, but
Yeah.
you did do a song, quick name drop. You did do a song with Clint Lowry that people do need to
Oh,
check out. I mean this, which I'm saying I mean this, but also the name of the song is literally I mean this. And you guys just did a cool recently did a cinematic remix of that that's really awesome. But no,
yeah.
man, like you're a good dude, and this is why I like doing these podcasts, man. When you get a chance to connect with people who have like a shared love for something, but also are examples of people who push through the difficult times and took that risk and are able to do what you love to do, man. I think it's a good example for people out there, whether they're into music or not, that it's worth the risk. I think that's the big takeaway here. It's worth the risk.
I think so. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, man. And you know, you're a great dude. You inspire me as well, with everything that you do. So I hope that people listen to your podcast and get inspired, um, because it's really important, and it makes the world a better place. So thank you
Well,
for it.
thank you, man. I really appreciate the kind words. Real quick, let them know where they can find you. I'll share the links, but let them know where they can find what you're doing, man. If they want to hit you up and chase their dreams in Nashville, work with you, or just listen to your beautiful piano work, man.
Yeah, you can always you can always keep up to date with me on Instagram. I'm usually pretty active on there. Maks Gabriel, there's not many. If you find others spelled Maks, there may be Max Max spelled like that. Mine's like a Russian root rooted name at Maxim, Maksim, and so Max is a short version of Maxim. So that's where I'm at, Instagram, and yeah, you look, follow me. I'm very responsive. I love talking to people. I love responding to whether it's fans of the music or if it's artists that are looking to do something, whether it's work on a song, get something produced and mixed, musical parts. I love working with people, good people, and yeah, that's about it.
Max, I appreciate the time, man. Go back to the family stuff, but thank you again, dude. I again, I know I've said it a lot, but I'm not short of my thank yous, and
Well,
I
thank
mean it
you.
from right here, brother. It's good to connect with good people out here, and shout out to Johnny for getting us in touch initially
Sure.
several months back, man. But keep doing your thing, man. Let's definitely keep in touch.
Thank you, brother. You take care.
Alrighty, dighty, there you have it. That was my conversation with Maks Gabriel. Make sure you go follow him on Instagram at Maks_Gabriel. And once again, that is spelled Maks. The links to all of his stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So just scroll down to the bottom of that podcast description, hit those links as I hit my table, and go follow and support my dude Max. I'm a goofball. The guy is awesome. I mean, what can I say, man? Like you guys heard in that conversation about his story, his journey to this point, growing up and learning and relearning piano. And again, in addition to that, I said producer and songwriter, which is what he is. But dude is a multi-instrumentalist. He's got a great voice. And as you guys just heard, I think on top of all of that, he's a kind, humble cat. And, I could go on for days, man. But it's just really cool when you come across people who are talented, when you come across people who are creative. And for me, on a personal level, when I meet people who are kind, and I meet people who also share a love of music, it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme. You know what I mean? Like where you're just excited to meet like-minded individuals. We have a shared love for Seven Dust, one of my favorite bands. He has done work with Clint Lowry from Seven Dust, who's one of my favorite guitarists ever. And also, I know it's a little name droppy. He was also a former guest of the pod. Shout out, Clint. Thank you for your time as well. But yeah, man, Max is just a really awesome dude, a really humble cat, and I really appreciate his time. So I just want to say directly to Max, thank you so much, dude, for taking the time to come on the podcast and share your story with myself and the listeners. I greatly appreciate it, man. And again, man, I feel really fortunate that our paths crossed. It's awesome when you come across good people, and your story is very inspiring to me to keep going and keep chasing my dreams. And I hope it inspires all of you out there to keep going and chasing your dreams as well. So I'm going to put a button on all of this because I don't want to rant too much. And I felt like I ranted a little bit in the intro, but I had to give my dude Max his flowers. But once again, go follow him on Instagram at Maks_Gabriel. The links to all of his stuff, including his website, will be in the podcast description for this episode. So you can learn more about all of the cool television shows that work he's done with artists that he's worked with have been on Instagram. He shares all the stuff of all the artists that he's working on, which I think is really cool too. He's just as excited for them as they are for their own stuff, and that's really what you want to see, man. Is you want to see people, spread love and again, I love music, and I think it's rare when you come across kind-hearted people who happen to love music as well, man. So I feel like he's a great dude, and I'm really grateful to be able to do shows like this and give you guys this content. So once again, if you want to follow me and check out my stuff and my goofball self, you can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod, on YouTube at March 4th Pod. TikTok is at March 4th Podcast. I'm getting a little bit better with the video editing stuff. I'm trying, man. I'm trying to do my thing here with these clips. Um, and yeah, and if you liked what you heard, tell a friend to tell a friend. Like and subscribe, share all of those things. They go a long way in helping the show get out to more people, man. And you can find me on IG a lot. That's where I'm a lot as far as the social media end of things. So if you want to reach out and connect, I will get back to you. It might take a minute. Sometimes, I don't see stuff. I'm not on there all the time, but I do take pride in being communicative and communicating clearly. and getting back to people, especially when they have kind things to say. So, yeah, dudes. And for all of you out there, man, again, make this your best year yet. I feel like every year we all say that, right? But for real, just seize the day, man. Just like Max was talking about in the conversation. We all get an opportunity. Um, and I don't think this part of it was on the actual conversation because we talked for like 30, 40 minutes before I even hit record. But one thing that Max said that really stuck with me, and I'll leave y'all with this, is time is the one thing we don't get more of. So keep that in mind, man. Make this your best year yet. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. Love yourself, love others, keep the faith, and be kind to one another. Courtesy of Max. This is his song with the aforementioned Clint Lowry. This is the cinematic remix version of I Mean This. Peace.
I see the light in you now. You fall apart like a dream. They wanna water you down, but I like watching you dream. Oh, let's see that magical gaze. Yeah, you used to have the soul of a saint, but I see that dread all over your face, that beautiful face. Oh no, I am forever and I mean this, endlessly holding you down. Oh no, I hate everything you want to me. I swear to God you will never change a thing. With every breath that I breathe, you are right there to die for me. It really cuts to the bone. Dark memories when you're all alone. Don't start screaming when there's nothing wrong. You're every dream I have, and I think you know. I know that you know.